Batman v Superman is a DC superhero movie where, well, I mean, you guys know. Batman is mad at Superman for being Superman, and Superman is mad at Batman for being a big meanie. And so they have a pretty slow fight with tonally out-of-place music until it turns out that both their moms are named Martha! After which they become best pals to fight an ugly DCCG monstrosity, and there you have it. Not the best superhero movie ever made. But the thing is, it could have been, with just one core alteration. See, if you've been following this channel for a while, you should already know BVS's main faults. The biggest of them all being the fact that as a versus movie, it lacks the thing that made Civil War so effective. In Civil War, the strife between the heroes is direct and personal, while in here, it's not. The disagreement is indirect, the fight is impersonal, and there's also a lack of mental instability and character connection. But don't worry, because years after identifying the problem, I have now found the solution. A solution which would have made this movie way better than Civil War, to the point where DC would have become the #1 brand in Hollywood as it should be, and the MCU would have been dusted. That solution being Robin. See, even though BVS introduces the death of Robin, the issue with that is the timing. It happened long ago and thus only takes away from the intended current emotional side.
There's a new kind of mean in him. He is angry.
Why? What reason does Batman have to be mean right now, and why would he be meaner today than 10 years ago when Robin died?
And instead of happening long ago, it should have happened now. It should have been relevant and influential to the story. The opening montage shouldn't have been about once more redoing Batman's origin with his parents' funeral just to use his mom's name later on. It should have been about Robin's funeral.
There's a new kind of mean in him.
The opening chaos shouldn't have been about the death of some random Jack. It should have been about the death of Robin.
He is angry. And he's empty.
And I know what you're thinking. Phil, didn't you just perish in a plane crash? And why are you covering this movie once again now? Well, firstly, never mind that. Secondly, I was remaking my old BVS video for my Spanish channel when I got the idea for a new series of videos. A series where I revisit the problems I've identified about movies in the past and try to find a solution for them and see how it would change things. And also, I was meaning to cover Blue Beetle, but it got delayed by a week.
They stole it from me! They took it! That was today!
So today, let's take a page from the Flash's book and go back in time to the early days of the DCEU to see how things could have been different. How the death of Robin would have given life to Batman v Superman. The first main issue with BVS is that the disagreement between Batman and Superman is indirect and thus emotionally lacking. Batman has a problem with Superman because Superman is an all-powerful god who could maybe, perhaps, potentially one day turn against humanity.
Even a 1% chance that he is our enemy, we have to take it as an absolute certainty.
Whereas Superman has a problem with Batman because Batman is branding criminals, which apparently is a death sentence in jail.
You know what stops him? A fist.
And because Lex Luthor commands him.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
As in, the engine of their conflict isn't united. They both have their own disconnected motives driving them into each other at an angle, which is an issue that Civil War doesn't have thanks to the Sokovia Accords, a UN agreement that would place the Avengers under government supervision. That's a two-sided topic that the heroes, for their own personal reasons, can disagree over. Tony supports the Accords because he, as a former merchant of death, feels responsible for the death and destruction they've caused.
We need to be put in check.
Whereas Steve, as a former soldier of a corrupt agency, is against the Accords because he knows that governments can't be trusted.
It's run by people with agendas, and agendas change.
The Accords themselves are a variable. They could have been anything. Their point is to be an engine generating a disagreement that's direct and powerful. And BVS should have and could have had that too, with the death of Robin. See, if Robin's death happened at the start of this movie, that would make this Batman a new kind of mean, not just verbally or in terms of technicality.
Technical way. Bad guys are associated with a thing that happens to blow up.
but more so in reality. He'd be manic, he'd be blinded by rage to the point where he's going around breaking bodies in half and killing criminals with his bare hands as he tries to find the one responsible for Robin's death. As to who the one responsible should be, that's up to the writer. I don't think it should be the Joker unless you completely change the third act, because the Joker shouldn't be reduced to playing second fiddle. Just some Batman criminal who managed to take Robin's life in the chaos of the attack on Metropolis. Someone who Lex Luthor is currently hiding in order to maintain Batman's rampage. Now, you get a mystery for Batman to solve that's way more meaningful and interesting than trying to find a quote-unquote random dirty bomb or kryptonite just in case.
So the white Portuguese is a Russian?
One that wants to bring a dirty bomb into Gotham.
Now, you have a proper way to explore Batman's momentary lapse into being a killer instead of first having him kill people and then just not really even acknowledging it. If you're gonna go that far, don't let it be for no reason. At least do something with it.
I perceive it as not him killing directly, but by sort of...
My point is that the fact that Batman is killing criminals in this movie would now become the Sokovia Accords of this movie. Because if you remember Man of Steel, you know that this is a topic also important to Superman. His choice to kill Zod was a big mistake, which you can now delve into. He would still be tormented by the guilt of what he did, and so when he learns that there's this other vigilante killing people left and right, he gets a strong urge to put a stop to it. He can't undo his mistake with Zod, but he can prevent it from happening ever again. That is the double-sided engine of disagreement that would bring Batman and Superman's conflict into reality. Batman believes in killing criminals because through his red vision, he sees it as the only way to find Robin's killer. Whereas Superman is against killing criminals because through his self-tormenting guilt, he can't allow that to happen anymore. Now, their conflict is direct, powerful, meaningful to them both. It's emotionally stronger even than the Sokovia Accords in Civil War.
The bat is dead. Bury it.
Do you bleed? You will.
Overall, it's better than Batman butting heads with Superman because he's a xenophobe. Better than Superman butting heads with Batman because he's a dum-dum who dislikes Batman for branding criminals to be targets in jail, but not for the fact that he's going around blowing criminals up. I mean, why would the Bat brand even make criminals targets in jail? Wouldn't that make them celebrities? They met the Bat and lived to tell about it. Oh right, because it's another empty, artificial thing.
He has to go, blood.
Yes, sir, boss.
No, you want a single two-sided topic of disagreement that both sides can approach directly for their own conflicting reasons. And all you need to get it is the death of Robin. The second main issue with BVS is that the physical fight between Batman and Superman is impersonal on both sides, to the point where the fight can be ended with words. Batman fights Superman on the basis that Superman holds the power to destroy the world, whereas Superman fights Batman on the basis that, irrelevant to Batman's actions, his mom's life depends on it. As in, one side is doing the usual blockbuster routine of trying to save the world.
This is about the future of the world.
While the other side is just doing what the movie says.
He has to go, blood.
Yes, sir, boss.
It's not personal, it's not powerful, it's so weak that it could be immediately ended with dialogue. I mean, that is what ultimately happens. When Batman learns that Superman has a mom like him, he suddenly thinks that Superman is literally him. And then that's it.
What the fuck?
Which is once again an issue that Civil War doesn't have thanks to Bucky. He makes the fight personal on both sides. Tony must kill Bucky to get justice/revenge for his parents, whereas Steve has to save Bucky because he's the only friend he's got left from his own time. Not to mention that he's not really culpable for what happened. It's strong enough in both corners to outlast any kind of magic words from either corner. And and by building the fight around the death of Robin, BVS could have had the same. Since Batman would now be on a bloody mission to find the murderer of his protege, he'll do anything it takes to complete it. It's so important to him that he's stopping at nothing. And that's where Superman comes in. He can't let Batman go any further, because the only way for him to cope with the guilt of killing Zod is to ensure that killings like that never happen again. The battle is so personally significant to both sides that there are no compromises or magic words to break it up. It's an unstoppable force meeting an immovable object. Either Batman goes through Superman or Superman stops Batman from going any further. One or the other. And of course, while it is up to the writer to decide how it all plays out, in a broad sense, it should take the route that allows both sides to overcome their flaws. Like this. Superman defeats Batman, at which point he's forced into the exact same difficult position he was in with Zod. He has Batman beat, yet Batman is still not willing to stop his rampage. So the only remaining way for Superman to protect life seems to be to take Batman's life by snapping his neck. But unlike before, Superman has now learned and grown from his mistake with Zod. He understands that he cannot destroy the soil to stop the weeds from growing. He cannot kill Batman to stop Batman from killing. He accepts his new role as a workhorse hero of hope who will always just have to be there to stop evil whenever evil once again arises. He can't change what happened, but he can choose what happens. He chooses to become Superman. And in some way, Superman's choice of growth also makes Batman grow over his flaw of enraged killing. Maybe his experiences with Superman makes him reflect on his own faults. Maybe he now realizes that he's been sent on a rampage by Lex Luthor. Whatever. Something that makes him have a positive change of heart, through which he also gets the answer to the mystery of what happened to Robin and who's responsible. He relearns his own rule of not taking life. He becomes Batman once more.
Even after everything you've done, I would have saved you.
And look, Batman is Batman and we all want him to win. And if this was animation, he would. The animated Batman is the most powerful character in all of fiction. He would solo Superman and Darkseid and all of Justice League and all of the Avengers and Thanos and Goku at the same time. Yes.
I am Batman.
But in live action, in this movie, it is more narratively powerful for Batman to lose the fight against Superman so that they can both grow. At least way more powerful than him just abandoning his objective in the middle of the fight to become Superman's best pal. More powerful, in my DC fanboy opinion, than even the conclusion to the fight in Civil War. All thanks to it being built around the death of Robin. The third and fourth main issue with BVS is the lack of mental instability and connection between the heroes. While both Batman and Superman have their problems, overall, they're doing reasonably well. Batman did lose some buildings and some random workers in the assault on Metropolis, but the last truly ground-shattering event in his life seemingly happened a decade ago. Now he fights for something hopeful.
This is about the future of the world.
Superman does have the headache of being covered in the media.
Oh my God.
But outside of some explosive plot twists, it doesn't really go anywhere or get him in real trouble with anything or anyone. He knows who he is, and he has what he needs.
I don't care what they're saying.
It should have been me, not him. It's not fair.
On top of which, the two hardly even interact. They meet once in costume for 2 seconds before they already throw hands. They meet once for 2 minutes outside of costume, and even then only because a third person makes it happen artificially. There's no real connection, just like there's no real mental imbalance. Neither of which are issues in Civil War, but rather strengths. Tony and Steve have a proper relationship. They share multiple scenes throughout the movie, which allows their conflict to develop and escalate. First, it's verbally indirect, then verbally direct, then physically indirect, and finally physically direct. and it's all boosted by the fact that they're not doing all right. Tony was just left by Pepper and has nobody to really talk to, while Steve just lost Peggy and now only has Bucky from his own time. When they clash, it's been built up and it's unstable enough to seem like it can truly blow. But once again, all BVS needed to beat Civil War at its own game is Robin. If Robin's death was recent, Batman would be messed up in the head. He'd be manic, he'd be making rash, destructive choices that go entirely against his usual beliefs. His son was murdered, and he doesn't give a who he hurts or how much to get to the one responsible.
Although, I'm still not so sure he would use guns.
And when Superman shows up to stop him, well, thanks to Batman's unstable mental state, everyone in the audience knows to take their fight seriously on his side because he will go through anyone. If Superman was still truly haunted by his guilt of killing Zod, he wouldn't be alright either. He'd be obsessed with fixing his mistake. And since he can't go back to undo what he did, all he can do is stop another version of it now. Stopping Batman for him would be a form of twisted vindication, like him returning to that day in Metropolis to stop himself. And on top of that, maybe the media coverage is making it a lot worse. Maybe the love of his life now isn't entirely sure whether to see him as a killer or not, since she has seen him kill, which would strain their relationship. Maybe even Superman himself isn't entirely sure of the answer anymore, and the only way to prove it to himself is by stopping this murderous bat vigilante at any cost. The fight is ready to blow also on his side, and when two opposing sides are unstable enough to blow, their collision is something you take seriously. As for the relationship topic, Robin could bring these two together. Instead of looking only into criminal casualties, Superman could use his reporter skills to track down the origin of it all, the death of Robin 18 months ago. That's when Batman's rampage began. That's the source. And now that he knows about Robin, he also somehow hears about Jason Todd and Bruce Wayne, who maybe funded the funerals of both Jason and Robin, or something. And so he goes to meet Bruce Wayne. He forms some kind of relationship with him. Maybe he even wants to help him because he knows what it's like to lose everything. They don't know each other's secret, but the point is that the audience does. When Bruce Wayne and Clark Kent disagree on something, that grows the disagreement between Batman and Superman because it's one and the same. The conflict can develop and escalate toward the big boom.
Mr. Wayne?
And I, Phil Minto, Phil, can very confidently say that this would have been a much better movie. It would have been better than Civil War because DC is inherently better than Marvel, and it would have at the very least given hope for the DCEU. That's what this movie should have been. Batman v Superman should have been about the death of Robin.